today's Gospel, we read the story about the healing of the man by the pool at Bethsaida. There's a couple of interesting points about today's Gospel. First of all is the completely disproportionate response of those people who encounter the man after he's been healed. Here is a man who has been sick for 38 years of his life, seriously ill for 38 years of his life, and he experiences this profound and huge miracle cure. And what happens? They don't see any of that. They don't see the work of God. Instead, they become fixated on the fact that he is carrying his mat on the day of the Sabbath, and he's not supposed to be doing that according to the rules. They become obsessed on this periphery, this irrelevant point, instead of seeing the work of God happening in their very midst. And in many ways, I think this small story really sort of sums up what happened during that closing of the old covenant and the opening of the new with Christ, and that sort of period in between. That failure to see the Messiah in their midst, that failure to recognize that he was at work. The other interesting point is when Jesus encounters the man later on in the crowd, he says something really intriguing to him. He says, look, go and sin no more, because if you do sin, something worse might happen to you. When you first read that, you think, what is Jesus suggesting that perhaps there will be a worse physical ailment that will afflict this man if he sins? But then you realize, no, the heart of Christ's mission is to save sinners. He is interested in our souls. It is that man's soul that is the primary focus of the mission of Christ. And so what he's saying here is he's reminding us again that there is a fate worse than physical death. There is a fate that is worse than experiencing physical sufferings, and that is to spend an eternity away from God, an eternity of damnation and separation from God because of sin. Today we are reminded again that Christ is intensely focused on the well-being of our soul. His mission, he has come to die on a cross out of love for us, to save us from sin and death. Today's saint quote of the day comes from Saint Basil the Great, and he said this: "From this it is clear that those who pretend to be tolerant because they wish to flatter those who thus fail to correct sinners actually cause them to suffer supreme loss and to plot the destruction of that life which is their true life." This quote really sums up for me what happens in that moment in today's Gospel when Jesus tells the man who has been healed to go and sin no more, or else something worse could happen to him. It's a reminder that the mission of Christ is about the salvation of our souls. It's a reminder that our real life is found in eternity. It's a reminder that there is something far worse that can happen than suffering and than mere physical death, and that is an eternity of separation away from God. It's also a reminder about the fact that morality and this call to virtue is intrinsic to the heart of Christ. It's not something that is secondary, it's fundamental. He's not just here to give us some nice feelings or to give us a sense of meaning and purpose. He's here to save our souls. So when you hear people talking about morality and saying things like, oh, that's all very nice, but in the real world, they're kind of missing the point. And this is what today's quote really is all about. The real world, the real life is found in Christ. It's not found separate from him. And to be in Christ, we need to be constantly attentive to those sins which separate us and divide us from him.